Hey everyone, this is Andy Hill, and today we're going to be talking about how to grow your freelance writing business fast. I'm happy to be joined today by professional freelance writer Michelle Black. After FinCon in 2018, Michelle quadrupled her freelance writing income and transitioned into writing full time. We had the chance to learn from Michelle at FinCon in DC, and today we're going to go FinCon 2.0 with her today and take it to the next level so we can learn even more. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I had a chance to listen to your presentation, but not everybody did. So would you mind walking through why you even wanted to go from part-time writer to full-time writer in the first place?
Yeah, so my primary motivation was to have more time with my family. I have two young kids. They're 8 and 9 years old. And I had flexibility before because I owned a small business, but the hours were demanding and I had office hours to keep. So I just wanted something that I could have more flexibility, more control over. And that was my primary motivator. There were other reasons too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm a big family man too, so I know where you're coming from, Michelle.
Yes.
Very cool. So you mentioned in your talk that a big part of your success comes from setting goals. So how do you personally set goals? Talk to us about that.
Um, so what I do is I like to start by looking at a problem that I want to solve. And then I try to kind of go backwards and create the solution to that problem and break it down into baby steps. So when I wanted to become a full-time freelance writer instead of a part-time freelance writer, what I did was I set goals of how much income I wanted to earn initially so that I would feel comfortable making the transition. And then I set some action goals that I had to do to help bring those changes about. So I studied other successful freelance writers and took courses. I, at one point, pitched 100 brands in 30 days, which was time consuming and a little crazy, but it really just kind of skyrocketed things for me and helped my goal take off.
Well, let's get nitty gritty with that then. So where do you physically put down these goals? You use a planner. Talk to us about that.
I do. I use an old school planner with just pen and paper. You can buy it on Amazon. It's called Tools for Wisdom, the one I use, but there are tons of planners that can accomplish this if you have a brand you like better. And in this planner, I'll break down, for example, my yearly or quarterly goal, depending on what it is. And then I'll identify like monthly steps that I need to take in order to hit that goal, and then further into daily steps. And that's where I really think the magic happens because it gets a little old. For example, just the pitching 100 brands, pitching 5 brands a day for 30 days gets a little tedious and a little tiresome. By just having that, though, written down as one of the things I want to accomplish for the day, it helped me stay consistent. And in the end, it paid off with some really big results for me.
Got it. Well, let's talk to the busy parent out there. You just said you've got kids that are 8, you said 8 and 9, is that right?
Yes,
8 and
eight and
9.
nine.
So talk to me about how you make time to create these goals with all the other things you've got going on in your life.
So I still have room to grow here. I think a lot of people probably do. I know I certainly do. I have some workaholic tendencies that I have to fight and try to overcome. But as far as making time, I do now try to limit my big goals to like one professional and one personal big goal at a time. Otherwise, I will just drive myself nuts. And I find myself kind of running all around and sacrificing the very time I'm trying to create with my kids and with my family. So by focusing in on one big goal personally and one big goal professionally, it helps me feel a little more sane, I think.
Oh, that's a smart way to go. Well, in your talk, you also talked about the importance of stretch goals. So you talked about these daily goals or things that you're putting down. Why are stretch goals important to you?
So when I look back at some of the things I'm most proud of that I've accomplished either professionally or personally in my life, it's always something that made me a little uncomfortable, something that pushed me out of my comfort zone, as cliche as that sounds. That's where I just kind of find that the magic happens. If it's something I can easily do and easily accomplish, I don't know, I'll make excuses and I can double up on that tomorrow. I don't have to do it today. It's too easy. But by having something just a little tougher than, what I would consider easy, it keeps me on course and makes me feel the urgency to, follow through with those daily tasks a little better.
Yeah, that makes sense. Putting out a big goal kind of pushes your own limits and helps you to get places you never thought were possible. So, speaking of places you never thought were possible, let's talk about this income side of things. If I have these numbers correctly, it seems as if in January 2019, you made $16,000 in 1 month from writing. Is that correct?
Yes, and that still kind of blows my mind. That's a lot more than I earned in my former small business. So yes.
I hear you. Well, we're going 2.0 with this presentation, so we want to talk about what's happening now. So January 2020, this just passed. What did this year look like for you?
So this year in January of 2020, I made a little over $20,000, but I wrote down some notes about this because I accomplished this with less writing. So in 2019, I wrote around 45 articles to earn the $16,000-ish goal, that I hit. But in January of 2020, I earned about $4,000 more income and I wrote 35 articles instead of 45.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's talk about that.
So
How did you write less but make more? Talk to us about how you did that.
So I've been very fortunate through this experience to have some great opportunities open up for me, whether it's opportunities that I found through pitching or a lot of opportunities I found just through friends and people I network with at FinCon that either needed work or they connected me with people that needed work. And so I have raised my rate slightly, but also some of these bigger projects require content that's more in my wheelhouse. Like not everybody can write about that, so it's a little more specialty, and so I'm able to charge a slightly higher rate, and also move through some of those articles faster. So it's had the effect of helping me increase my income while at the same time decrease the number of articles I write, which is great.
Talk to us about your niche, what it is, and then how you decided to stick with that niche.
Well, for me, it was pretty easy. I'm a credit expert, and in my former small business, like that's what I did for 17 years. So I didn't have to really kind of agonize over what my niche was. I had just, spent a decade and a half studying credit reporting and scoring, and I'm certified as a credit expert witness. So I can testify in federal and state court cases about credit related laws and things like that. So for me, it was easy, but I do have a lot of friends and a lot of newer freelancers that I've met with that are at the very beginning of this journey, and they're knowledgeable about a lot of different topics. So it's tough to choose what their niche is and hone in on that in order to become, an expert's expert, if you will, in that area.
Well, talk to the person right now who's listening that says, well, I like writing about credit, but I like to write about parenting, and I like to write about healthy eating as well. Talk to them about the importance of niching down and how that is important for your freelance business.
Yeah, I don't think you have to give up everything else, but I would say try to focus, I don't know, maybe 60, 75% of your writing on your primary niche. And things that might help you make that choice are, what do you feel most confident writing about? What do you have to research the least when you write about it? Because that knowledge is just already there and already in you. What are you comfortable studying to learn more about? Like, you don't want to pick a niche that's boring to you, or you're going to drive yourself nuts if you spend, 10 hours a week studying about taxes. In my case, I write some articles about it, but that is not my wheelhouse. I can write some very basic, like, here's when to expect your tax refund or something like that. But pick something that you like. And then, sure, free up part of your schedule to write things that are just fun. I think that's fine. And it helps you not get bored by writing about the exact same topic all of the time. I think it's fine to leave a little space in your schedule to work on other projects outside of that main niche as well.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So, have you experienced any, I guess, niche burnout as you've been writing about a certain topic for a while? And you're like, man, I really like to write about something else. Or are you just so into it, it just makes sense?
Occasionally, I think my bigger issue with writing about credit so often is that I want to make sure and present the topic in a new and unique way for each client. And when you're writing about how do credit inquiries impact your credit scores for the 250th time, that can be a little challenging in itself. Like, it so well, but how do you say it a little bit differently so that it stands out?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Well, let's talk
Yeah.
about how you manage your schedule and things like that. I want to talk to you about what a typical day looks like for somebody that pulls in $20,000 in a month writing, which is great. Decrease the amount of articles and make a little bit more money. That's fantastic. So how do you manage your schedule during the day? Talk to me about a typical day for Michelle.
So if my day goes well, my goal is to write between about 7 and 3 when my kids are at school so that I'm free when they get home to help them with homework, to take them to their after school activities. So I do, in the morning and usually in the week, I'll sit down and map out like what my due dates are for the week, which day I need to accomplish each article, and I write them on my schedule, like what I'm going to write for the day. Now, in reality, what happens a lot is that things will come up. I'll have unanticipated edits for a piece I previously submitted to a client, or I'll have to work on something else in my business that isn't directly writing related. Whatever it is, more often than I like, that schedule does get thrown out of whack. And when that happens, thankfully I have a great support system. My husband is awesome. He just jumps in and he takes the kids where they need to be. I'll purposely make sure I have a break when they're home until bedtime. And then some nights I'll go right back at it at night after they've gone to sleep and get up and do it again the next day. So I'm trying to have fewer days like that and more days where I do actually get to stick to my schedule instead of deviate from it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So if you're working 7 to 3, you're probably Monday through Friday kind of situation. How many? What's your goal for hours to work during the week with your small business?
I'd like to work 40 hours a week. I'm
Mhm.
comfortable with that. That'd be less than I'm working now. Like I said, workaholic tendencies that I am trying to turn down some. So
Me too, my friend. Me too.
yes,
I think a lot of us are working on this. That's why I think it's important to talk about, the realities
yes,
of making great money. We also have to kind of figure out these schedules that jive well for our families, or just the things we want to do outside of our businesses. So that's fantastic. Thank
yes.
you so much for sharing that with me. I wanted to ask you about, I guess, the scale with which you've done this. You had a great presentation in last year's FinCon. You talked about how you went from 2018 FinCon to where you are today. That's very fast to grow your income like you did. Can you share, I guess, just maybe one or two tips that you'd have for somebody listening to say, hey, I would like to grow my freelance writing business fast like Michelle did?
Yep. So I would definitely say find the people who are successful and try to learn from them. I'm a big fan of not reinventing the wheel. So Holly Johnson, for example, is a phenomenal freelance writer, and she has a great course out there called Earn More Writing. You can find it on earnmorewriting.com. She also has a pro version, and Holly really like peels back the layers of the onion and just breaks down the steps that she takes. I had been ghostwriting for years on the side, so I wasn't a newbie to freelance writing, but I still got a ton of value out of Holly's courses. And then there's other successful freelance writers as well. I know that Miranda Marquette and Ben Luffy and Kat, they're getting ready to launch this year in 2020 a freelance writer's den. And I can't overemphasize the importance of just learning from the success of others. And even like Holly's group, and I believe the freelance writing den will have this as well. Oh, and FinCon has a freelance writing group as well now. Joining these Facebook groups where you can just chat about the little problems that come up and see how the more experienced writers chime in and deal with those issues when they arise. That way you're prepared to either deal with that issue now or you know how to address it when it comes up in your own business.
I think that's a great idea. Sometimes if you're a freelancer, or maybe you transition from a career where you had a bunch of colleagues and now you're on your own, you can kind of feel like alone. You're like, oh man, well, I don't know what to do with this situation because I don't have my colleagues anymore. But you do. You have this community. You've got these people that are out there that are doing it well, and the community that's been of the folks that you mentioned and FinCon is all about helping others. So, like you said, reach out, touch base. I think there's a lot more people willing to help than there are people not willing to help to get where you want to go.
Yeah. And always feel free to hit me up for questions if you have them. If I know the answer, I will be happy to share it. And if I don't, I'll be happy to try to help you find it. And then we'll both learn it together.
Very cool. Michelle, this is awesome. So I wanted to ask you a couple questions. We're in a personal finance community, right? So you're making a lot more money than you used to be making when you were, doing part-time writing. So talk to us about what happens now with this extra money in your life. What are you doing now with your life?
So my husband and I are paying down some debts currently, and we're making some good progress toward that. The goal is by the end of 2020, this is one of my big personal goals, is to be debt-free aside from our mortgage. We're going to tackle that later, but debt-free aside from the mortgage by the end of 2020. And even though we're not completely debt-free yet, we have also ramped up our savings and investing contributions as well. Once we're debt free, then I'll really be able to pour more into that. And that's exciting.
That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, if you look back 2 years ago to where you are now, can you even imagine making what you're making and then making the financial progress you're making? Would that just blow your mind 2 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. It's still, it feels a little bit like I won the lottery. Like it's great. It's the lottery. I have to work very hard to win, but still, I'm happy with it. Like I feel extremely fortunate and blessed.
Well, it's something that you've crafted over years. You've got a skill. You're working hard for it, so it's money well earned. Absolutely. So, talk to us about any reinvestment in the business. Does a business like yours have a lot of expenses, and if so, how are you spending money to grow your business?
So on the freelance writing side, the overhead is extremely low, which is great. That's a nice thing. But I absolutely invest in like self growth and education. So I'll be attending several conferences this year because those inspire me and I get great ideas. And just being around other driven people, other goal setters, I don't know, it makes me want to up my game. So I definitely invest in that. And then I do have some goals here moving forward where we are relaunching two blogs that we have. And we're working to kind of diversify our income streams there. And I'll be spending some money on that, on some site redesigns, and eventually paying some freelance writers to help me get a lot of content out there. So there's some goals to reinvest a little bit more heavily moving forward.
I love that. Yeah, the freelance writer hiring the freelance writers. I think that makes sense, right?
Yes.
Well, you can only write so much, right? I mean, and there's only so many hours in the day, and it makes sense to reinvest in your business like that, especially as you've grown your level, not only experience-wise, but also the rate that you're able to charge. So from a business side, that makes a ton of sense. So you talk about those two blogs. So you say you're writing for a lot of different companies, and then is this part of your business goals in the future to have your own separate blogs where you're creating some income outside of writing?
It is. I had a rather big health scare in 2019 last summer. And so I didn't hit my overall income goal for 2019. I still did great. I mean, it was still far beyond what I earned before, but I was out. I could barely write for a few months. I still kept most of my clients, but I had to turn my contributions to those clients way down. It was a brain related issue. And so I was on medicine that made it foggy, my head foggy, and it was hard to write. And so that health scare was enough that I was like, okay, Michelle, this freelance writing income is great, but we've got to diversify and find some income sources that, can still keep on trucking if you're down and out. And so my husband and I are working toward building our blogs, building those brands, and building the audiences, growing them, and eventually, developing some great partnerships there, the right ones.
That's great.
I have a lot to learn in that space.
That's why we're doing the show, really. I mean, I think everybody's got
Yes.
a lot to learn. Absolutely. So you said your husband works with you. How does that work? You got your husband, partner in the business. How do you guys take turns doing what you need to do to get the business going?
So he does. He works on the blog side instead of the freelance writing side. And he's just helping to manage the site designs. We're very early in this phase, but he's helping to manage the site redesigns. And then he'll be in charge of, posting and scheduling content and social media posts and things like that as we move forward. And learning what it is that we need to do, because we're not even fully aware of how to accomplish those goals yet. So we're in the process now of studying successful bloggers that have grown, their brands and grown big audiences, and trying to learn what they did rather than reinvent the wheel. So right now he's in information gathering mode so that we can formulate a plan.
That's great. Well, it's great to have a partner, not only in marriage, but also in business. Very cool. That's a great plan, Michelle. So, Michelle, I really appreciate your time today, opening up and sharing with us your big wins and the areas that you're working on personally and your future goals. So, where's the best place for people to connect with you and learn more about what's going on with you?
So I'm on Twitter a lot, Michelle L. Black. You can connect with me on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. It's Credit Writer, WRITER on Instagram. And my primary website is creditwriter.com.
Excellent. Michelle, thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to hanging out again soon. We were just in Lake Tahoe playing pool. That was a lot of fun. We got to do that again soon. So thanks again for getting together today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.